What About Vietnam? A podcast with Gary Newsom. The series where Curry talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam? I'm happy to report Vietnam is really hitting its straps again as far as being a vibrant, healthy country to visit. I've just got back. I had a fabulous time. I could have stayed a lot longer, but there's just so much to do and trying to cram it in is always a challenge. I know I may sound a bit like a broken record, but there's just such a variety of things to do and discovery is endless. So today I wanted to focus on Phong Nha. Now, Vietnam has kind of managed to get through the really hard years of COVID with a lot of hard work like most places, but also diversification in many cities and localities. And the Phong Nha locality is one such region that really pulled all their straps together to try and build on what was available with the caving to lots of other activities. And a great advocate for that is Ben Mitchell. Now, I've had Ben Mitchell on the show before, along with Howard Limbert, but we really concentrated on the caves. And I wanted today's story to be about some of the other cool things there are to do in addition to the caves in Phong Nha. Because for you and your planning, a couple of days might not cover a visit in Phong Nha. You may want to extend it to a week, and you'll hear from Ben as he actually says he wishes he had $1 for every person that says, we should have added in more time as there's just so much to do. Ben is really well known in the region. He's a strong advocate for tourism and really goes out of his way to educate, to inform people about the region, and he's got some great links, and I'll certainly include those in the notes that you'll be able to get access to. His knowledge, extends to the region's history, and that includes its war history. He knows a lot about bike riding and getting around through the jungles, the Phong Nha Loop. He'll talk about all of these kind of activities in the show. And, what's great, it's the kind of region that I think a family could really enjoy a long stay there, lots of activities for kids to do, healthy stuff out in nature and exploring farms and farm life and great tasty food from farm to table, and just a very nice community spirit with really good, fun, cool things for kids to do that they'll be talking about for years to come. And I think, if you can build into your trip some part that does offer a long stay, it means you kind of get to unpack your bags, leave them there for a week, and then do some really cool day trips. And Phong Nha, I think, gives you those options and that variety. I'm really grateful for Ben coming on the show, and I just know you're going to love all his stories and some of the stuff that he's got to share with us today. Ben, welcome to What About Vietnam once again.
Good morning, Carrie. Thank you.
Thought what we'd get into now, Ben, was some of the things we talked about before we got on here, and that was just some of the things that you can do in Phong Nha that are kind of not for your cave lovers, not for people who are coming to Vietnam to do caves. We know that there's those people. But for those that have gone, gosh, I really didn't have any real knowledge of Phong Nha. So maybe speak to Phong Nha and a little bit of history. I'm going to make sure that I put in the notes some of your links, etc., to some of your historical aspects that we talked about. But maybe share with my listeners now just a little bit of the history of Phong Nha so that they can get a feel for it.
Well, Phong Nha's really got a lot to offer to people that want to experience the beauty of rural Vietnam. The mountains here are karst mountains. They're covered in jungle. There is an incredible road which goes from the village of Phong Nha into the mountains up to a place called Cha Ang intersection where it runs into the Ho Chi Minh Trail West. That road is called Highway 20 or Victory Road. And that was the road that essentially led North Vietnam out of Phong Nha, the North Vietnamese army out of Phong Nha to go to fight in the south. It's part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail network. But those roads were built and trails were built during the American War. And today they provide us with access into some really beautiful jungle mountain area national park. And that has become the Phong Nha Loop over the years with the backpacker tourism. And the Phong Nha Loop can be utilized as a day trip by tour companies. Use it to go to the Dark Cave, the Nhúc Mok Eco Trail, and the Paradise Cave. You can rent a motorbike and go there. For the very fit, you can do it by mountain bike. And I mean, very fit. We do have a lot of people do that, but and I've done it, but it's quite a big ride. It's about 60 to 70 kilometers of a couple of mountain passes in that. And what I highly recommend people do is go on the back of a local experienced motorbike rider. They've got their own scooters. They're very easy to book through your homestay. They generally charge about $20, a little bit more than $20 for the day trip. Basically, you've got a couple of things going on there. One is that those guys are getting a day's salary. So, for each person that goes out, there's a bit of money for the local riders. The other thing is the scenery. The scenery is just amazing off the back of a motorbike. It's an incredible way to see it. If you're on the back of a licensed rider, you can have a beer at lunchtime. One of the places around the park, you can relax, and it's just an incredible day out that I've never met anyone who didn't rave about after they've done it. What we've made ourselves, I actually made it with a gentleman from Da Nang, and he came up and helped me, and I got with Hung from Karst Villas. Hung owns a little resort called Karst Villas. Hung and I used to run tours around the national park. We were actually the first people to run tours around the national park, and we had a lot of information that we've now put onto a bit of a podcast that people can listen to in chapters. There's the first chapters about Phong Nha Cave to give people some background information about that. And then there's some other chapters about different things around the Phong Nha Loop and about what you're actually looking at and experiencing as you go around. And that ties in really well with people who either rent a motorbike and go around, or they sit on the back of a licensed rider and go around the park, to give them a bit of background and give them a bit extra value for their trip.
Okay, and I think that's good to mention because I'd like to put some links to that, Ben, if you'll allow me, in the transcript and on the website so that people can get that. Because the other thing we kind of touched on at the beginning was this aspect that Phong Nha offers the opportunity for a bit of a DIY trip, doesn't it? So you can kind of make it up as you go. Obviously, there's access to people like yourselves in Phong Nha that can give some advice. I mean, you've only got to contact Ben at Phong Nha. His links will be in the show notes. But maybe speak, Ben, if you would, to kind of stuff that people can do as a family stuff that, can amuse kids. I know, you've got a young family as well, and I see them paddle boarding and I see them surfing, and I see, I know the surf is not like Australia's surf, but, there are some different aspects which people wouldn't automatically think would be available from Phong Nha as a kind of a base.
Yeah, well, Dong Hoi City itself is located on the East Sea, and it has some beautiful big beaches. There's Bao Ninh and Nat Lay. People that stay in Dong Hoi City can experience those beaches, can experience the seafood restaurants along the beaches. Dong Hoi could be explained as being it's a place where you can really get Vietnamese modern culture. It's not set up for Western tourism. It's set up for Vietnamese tourism. And in summer, it's quite busy with Vietnamese tourists and quite a lot of fun for people that are looking for something very unique, as opposed to going to, beaches that are set up for Western tourism. Staying in Dong Hoi still gives easy access to the national park. There's tours you can do. You can rent scooters. You can get riders. You can stay in Dong Hoi for 1 night, 2 nights, and then still come out to Phong Nha. The whole province has got a lot of different things, a lot of diversity because of it's a diverse place. You've got the mountains, the jungle, you've got the rural farmland, you've got the beaches, you've got these incredible sand dunes just north of Dong Hoi that have now got 4-wheel motorbikes that you can rent and ride around on the sand dunes. So, yeah, there's a lot of diversity there with the beach. I personally like to go over to a beach called Da Nang Beach, which is only about a 25-minute drive from Phong Nha Farmstay where I live. And I like to go over there at dawn often and go surfing. The best surfing time is the autumn and the winter when we get the storms. But we've been going over actually a couple of times recently for some little waves with the kids early in the morning. As far as out here, things to do with families go, I really rate the Bong Lai Valley as a great day trip. Most of the homestays around here have got bicycles included in your stay, or you can rent better mountain bikes, and you can also do bicycle tours with Xi's. Another guy called Xi has Phong Nha bicycle tours, and he runs some incredible bicycle tours, including going up around the Bong Lai Valley and other areas out in the countryside and along different parts of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And he actually has a company here that does the bicycle tours, Mr. Xi. And with Bong Lai Valley, you can also go up there with the Phong Nha riders on the back of a scooter, or you can rent a scooter and go up there. It's a loop that you do in a rural valley with different stops around the loop that have just naturally evolved around backpackers. And you've got a few farm-to-table restaurants along the way, like Moi Moi, which is one of my favorites, where they do barbecued chickens. When you order the chicken, you actually see people go off and start chasing chickens. They do a really amazing dish.
I bet they're frightened when they see people come in. Oh, no, they're going to have me for lunch. Oh,
no, they look pretty calm, just cruising around doing their thing. These are really, really true free-range chickens too.
You cannot get more free range than that.
No, they're called gar doi, which means garden chicken, and they're pretty happy chickens.
God knows
I've actually met some people who are vegans. Are not vegans, are vegetarians because of food industry reasons, and they will eat the chicken up there because they see it as being
a garden variety.
Yeah, and happy chickens. Yeah,
right.
So I was sort of surprised, but I've seen that a couple of times.
I'm kind of conscious that people want to plan and plan their time. So with all of the things that you're bringing in this episode to us, how should people plan their stay? Like how long, where should they do it from? How do they manipulate it? Because we also kind of agreed that there's a lot of kind of mishmash of information out there. So a lot of people come to me and say, look, it's just overwhelming. I don't know what's good, what's not good. Like, so can we give a bit of a steer for people as, you know, how they kind of put this together? Do they come to Vietnam first and then do it from Vietnam? Do they do it all their research from home? Where can we send everyone? You may see at the beginning of the show notes in the podcast channel that you're listening from some words that say text me a message. It's a great idea, don't get me wrong. I love hearing from you. And, you know, whether that's your thoughts on the episodes, some questions, messages of appreciation, you know, I just love the feedback. It's really great. However, I feel it remiss of me to not thank you for them, but to not be able to respond directly to you. So if you have sent me a question, and I've got lots, and you haven't heard from me, there's a really good reason why. I actually don't have the ability in the technology to respond to you. They kind of expect that you would or I would answer the questions in the form of a show. And there's just kind of too many, and I just think it's just too personal not to do it that way. So I wanted to alert you to the fact that if you do send me a message through that connection option, I'm not going to be able to respond to you directly. So if you do have a question, and it is time sensitive, or you want to send me any kind of message, can I suggest the following two ways? One, send me an email to whataboutvietnam@gmail.com. That is the email address that I have the most constant access to, and I will aim to get back to you ASAP. Secondly, if you go to the website for the podcast, which is whataboutvietnam.com, if you scroll right to the bottom, there is a chance for you to leave a voice message. Now, in that voice message, I can respond to you equally with a response in voice. So if you want a quick response, that's your next best way. But I just wanted to get this into the show, make you aware of this, as it really is becoming problematic. And I've just got too many, and I can't kind of go naming people and answering each question. That's just a little bit silly. So if you have sent me a text message before and you're waiting on a message back as a response, I'm so sorry. I cannot do that. But if you want to send the question again, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Well, I think people can if people say listen to your podcast, well then by listening to different episodes, they will get different information about different areas from people who have a lot of experience in those areas. And I think other sources of information at the moment, I think that tourism numbers are still very down. And I think that if someone landed in Vietnam and started moving through the country, they had already chosen all of their hotels and what they're going to do each day and that before they got here, 100% booked in, they would probably find that by talking to other travelers heading in the other direction at the moment, that they might have done things differently had they had more modern information, say, from
up to date
information. I'm hearing from a lot of people that they're wishing that they had booked maybe less time in some of the more developed areas and more time in some of the less traveled to areas. I'm also hearing that people are noticing big changes in what they're finding when they get to destinations they've been to before. A lot of businesses have shut down. A lot of businesses have been knocked about in their management systems during COVID. And a lot of businesses have done a full or partial changeover to domestic tourism. And the domestic tourism has much different expectations to what Western tourism has. You might find that when you get to that resort that you've stayed at before, that it's operating very differently with a much different atmosphere. So you've got to be a little bit adaptable, and you've got to be prepared to maybe change your plans or not have such set plans if you're traveling through the country. I mean, it's probably different if you're going to come out to Hoi An again and stay there for 2 weeks and just chill and hang out and soak up what that town's got to offer. That would be, you're going to do that. But if you're actually going to travel through Vietnam at the moment, you would probably have to make some of the decisions about what you're doing along the way by talking to people heading in the other direction that you're bumping into, because they're going to give you information that might conflict with what your expectations were.
Mm. And I think for my listeners, if you kind of consider the fact that the industry was just so hit so hard that a lot of the Vietnamese workers that worked in the travel industry have since left that industry. And that's a
really big player.
That is a very big really player. Big. And I think I want to just manage people's expectations at this point and to realise that has meant that a lot of the hotels that Ben's talking about also cannot actually take 100% occupancy because they don't have the staff to man the hotels that were originally operating at those levels. So they have small occupancies that they can manage with people. And as Ben also alluded, there's also some takeovers that have happened. So the hotel might, that you went to before or that you looked once before on the website, actually it's kind of changed its name. It's having some, renovations done. It's got a new manager. It's got a new style. And, Ben's quite right. It is targeting more the, nearly 100 million local residents of Vietnam rather than it is us Westerners and foreigners to the country. And likewise, I think we need to appreciate that there's a kind of what I'm hearing from my chats with people is that there's a retraining going on. So the people that have left the industry and they're hiring back new people, they've got to start from scratch. So, it's kind of evolving, but it's not evolving. It's not a flick of a switch. It's not that, oh, okay, the gates are open. We're all, jack ready to go. That's just actually not happening. What is comforting to hear is that there's enthusiasm out there and there's hope out there and there's people aspiring back to, to welcome international tourism back because, I think the country does have so much to offer. And what I love about talking to you, Ben, is that you do get very much involved with the tourists as they come through. And I love how you can kind of share also that community spirit of Phong Nha, because when I see anything about Phong Nha with your name attached to it, you're meeting and greeting people, you're sharing them, with them what you know and experienced. Now you've been there, a long time. So getting back to that question about people planning, I agree. I think being able to be adaptable and flexible with their bookings, because if you're locked in, you're locked in. So people just be careful with your cancellation policies and things like that. I think you'll find there's some maneuverability. There is a lot of accommodation there. And one of the things I want to emphasize with Phong Nha is there is the beautiful homestays, but if you want luxury and that, you can go up, to your 4 and 5 star villas and things like that as well. So there's that really broad scope of, the adventure traveller, or, maybe the chill and luxury and have a gin and tonic kind of traveller as well. There's that really lovely mix. So just getting back, Ben, to people planning their time, you and I have talked about this before, that you actually get some visitors that come for a couple of days but wish they'd stay for longer. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I wish I had $1 for everyone I heard say that, but I'm glad I have $1 for everyone.
You mean a dong, don't you?
But I'm glad I have $1 for everyone who has stayed an extra day. But I think that I'm hearing that daily as people leave, that people wish they had longer in this area. They underestimated what the area had to offer. And I do always look forward to them going away and telling people about the area because they enjoyed it so much. As far as things to do, I mean, the Bonglai Valley with those restaurants like Moi Moi and the pub with cold beer, with Kung's Jungle Experience, where he teaches people about rubber tapping, and he's got a big swing up there and a full operating farm that he shows people around. Then there's Mr. Quinn at the Duck Stop, which is somehow it's become like this world famous thing for people to go there and be entertained by his ducks, his performing ducks. That's really popular with families, really popular with, travelers. And the food up there is quite a foodie experience for the farm-to-table dishes. Like they've got bamboo stuffed with pork. They've got the bun lock cakes, which are a peanut and mushroom little sort of pasty pie made from cassava. All these delicious delicacies and different foods that if you go up there as a group, even like you often see families and groups of backpackers together sit down and all have a big sort of order different foods and sit around and eat together in a hut up there in one of the farm to table restaurants. So that's Bonglai Valley. That's a good day trip and it's cheap. I mean, you do it yourself. It's simple as that. You've got a map. The maps are online. It's all available. Then, as I mentioned before, the National Park Loop is a good thing to do. There's many things to do along that. So you can sort of choose what you want to do before you go with a little bit of research and maybe talking to your homestay or talking to the locals. The Phong Nha cave in itself is really it's the original tourism thing to do here in Phong Nha. When I first came here back in early 2007, it was a tourism thing that you could do here. You hop on a boat at the Pha Dung Son ferry crossing, and which is basically why the village was there. It was a village around a ferry crossing, and you go up the river 7 kilometers, and then they turn the engine off on the boat, and then you go 1 kilometer into the cave. Now, it's a great cave to visit. It's a great cave trip. But sadly, at the moment, there's still no information about what you're looking at and where you are. And there's a lot of really interesting information about that. So Hung and I have added that to the podcast that we made in order to try and share that information. I know at Easy Tiger Hostel pre-COVID at 9:00 in the morning every morning, people came from all the different hotels down to Easy Tiger for the 9 a.m. talk where we would tell people about that, then send them off to the cave in big groups so they could all share the boat. That is currently not happening at the moment because Easy Tiger did not survive COVID. At the farm stay, we try and tell our customers, but what I'm finding is much easier for our staff and for us as a whole as we rebuild. At both our businesses that are still open is we refer people to the podcast just to get that historical information. And I'd like to start sharing that more with all the other homestays too, so their customers can benefit from that as well. As far as exploring the local area goes, a bicycle ride around in the countryside on either side of the river heading away from Phong Nha town either upriver or downriver is a great experience to get out into the countryside, because I really fell in love with riding around all the islands in the delta behind Hoi An back in 2007 through to about 2010. I found it to be like just all Vietnam with no development and nothing out there for foreign tourists. And then you could still be back at your hotel in the evening and like nice and comfortable and out for a beer or whatever you want to do. And Phong Nha is very much at that stage at the moment. If you leave the village of Phong Nha, you sort of go out into the countryside. You can aim for some different things, like a ride out to the dark cave for a day trip on a bicycle is really good. You can ride bicycle out to the Bong Lai Valley and then come around past where I live in the afternoon through Khu Nam Village. Khu Nam Village has just been designated by the government as a tourism village for they want to try and get into the tourism market, but it'll be very different because it's much more low-key sort of tourism in a rural environment, and that's where the Phong Nha farm stay has always been. A book was recently written by an author called Sue Fleming. She was here on holiday during COVID, and from Hanoi. And Sue was talking to my mother, who was stuck here throughout COVID for 2 years. And my mother had done about 8 years worth of research, talking to old people in the village using local interpreters. And Sue got hold of all Mum's research and wove a novel around her research, which we are now selling at the Phong Nha farm stay, with proceeds going to rebuilding the museum, which was destroyed in the big floods that we have here every few years. That book's called Two Pillars Remain, and we're selling that here now. There's also some great, there's a good documentary that's been made by Utah University, and that is about the war. My mother-in-law features in that documentary, along with a lot of U.S. Marines that served on the DMZ and other Vietnamese combatants. And that documentary is really good for people who want to just sort of hear about the human side of the war.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned about Utah. I want to say hello to many of my Utah listeners, and I'll tell you why, Ben. Fascinating as it may be, there are a lot of people who left Vietnam as war veterans, etc., and took their families and resettled in Utah in the US, 75, onwards, etc. So, yeah, it's really interesting that that documentary is coming out of Utah. I can totally understand why, and really good to know.
Huge amount of young people coming into the tourism industry over here. A lot of them were actually studying tourism during COVID, and they were frightened because they decided to go into a field that was
not looking sustainable.
Not looking sustainable. And so they're all quite enthusiastic, and they're coming out now and looking for jobs. A lot of the best people from pre-COVID, they were the sort of people who had a lot of get up and go in them, and they got up and went when COVID hit. And I'm finding that a lot of the guys that I used to work with and around, they're in places like Taiwan and Penang and different parts of the world now.
Yeah.
Doing some doing the same job and a lot doing different jobs, and they won't come back now. I don't think. I think that they've left the industry, and that's making it very difficult for some of the tour companies.
Yes.
Some of the tour companies are struggling to find those experienced guys that used to carry their workload for them. And now they've got young, inexperienced people coming in, and that's adding to the stress of starting up, trying to do the training. Some companies really tried to do some unique measures to stay alive during the COVID. That's really paying off for them now. Companies like Exalis, who kept all their tour guides busy and working and all their porters busy and working by diversifying. I hear different stories from up and down the coast of other companies that did the same. That'll pay off for them now. I know that I'm very grateful for a couple of the key people who run our businesses who we've still got with us, and I can see that I'm very lucky to have them still.
Ben, thank you for being on the show. I'd like to share with everyone the links that you mentioned. I'll make sure that they're in the notes for people to access. And just great to catch up and talk everything Phong Nha.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Kerry.
When you hear the words, a girl's getaway to Vietnam, is there just a little part of you that says, that sounds really interesting? What's involved? Let me tell you, a What About Vietnam travel companion hosted tour. This is something I have had in the baking for at least 3 years. So let me assure you, it's going to be an absolutely wonderful experience for a group of girls. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Starts in Saigon. You're going to get to experience the vibe of that city, shopping-wise, cultural-wise, food-wise. You're going to then move on to Hoi An, and I've spoken a lot about Hoi An on this program. So you're going to get to experience an old world town and just the sheer beauty of that old town and meeting some new people, beautiful beach, once again, great food, but also that beautiful sense of old world charm. And then lastly, you'll get to experience the island of Phu Quoc, which is another experience which is totally different and unique. And I'm hoping with those 3 experiences, you're just going to have the holiday of a lifetime. So think about coming as yourself, just on your own and joining in with the group, or you might want to bring a couple of girls with you. It is a very small group. It's hosted by our Travel Companion Services Director, Kelly McCarthy. So let me assure you, she has got fun as the top priority for this trip. So we're really in sync. Please go to the website, whataboutvietnam.com, click on the Travel Services tab, and it'll take you to the Girls Getaway page. There's a full itinerary there, and you can reach out to Kelly directly to get more information. We'd love to have you on board. It is only a small group, so it's very private. We put a lot of work to get the itinerary just right, and we just think you're going to have a fabulous time. So get in touch. We just are pretty excited about this trip, so I'd love to have you on board.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?